Sometimes life doesn't wait for you to be ready. Sometimes the door doesn't open until you push it with every ounce of strength left inside you. And sometimes the greatest version of you is born the moment you decide that staying the same is far scarier than changing. There comes a point in every life when comfort begins to suffocate potential, when the familiar starts feeling like a cage, when you look in the mirror and realize that the person staring back deserves more courage, more growth, more belief, more effort. Leveling up is not a gift life hands you. It is a decision, a fierce, uncomfortable, unwavering decision to rise above your excuses and rewrite your story. You don't level up because someone cheers for you. You level up because you refuse to let fear be the author of your destiny. And today, I want to remind you of something powerful. You are one decision away from a completely different life. Choose growth over comfort. There comes a stage in life when the comfort you once protected starts feeling like a prison painted beautifully from the outside, but hollow on the inside. You begin to feel that the familiar is no longer nurturing your soul, and the routine you once loved is now quietly suffocating your dreams. A gentle voice from within starts whispering that you were made to stretch, to expand, to evolve beyond this version of yourself. Growth never knocks loudly at first. It nudges your heart, asking you to acknowledge the truth you've been avoiding. And the truth is that staying the same becomes far more painful than embracing change. Choosing growth means stepping into the unknown with trembling hands but determined footsteps. It means walking a path with no clear map, guided only by faith that something meaningful awaits you. You may doubt your strength, question your steps, and fear losing the comfort you once clung to, but deep down you know that the journey is necessary. This is where courage becomes your companion and uncertainty becomes your teacher. You learn that clarity doesn't come before you move, it comes because you moved. There will be moments when comfort calls you back, offering ease, offering stillness, offering the illusion of safety. At times, that call may feel tempting, especially on days when your heart is tired from trying. But you must remember that comfort can only offer you what you already have, not what you are capable of becoming. You must remind yourself that potential cannot breathe in places where fear dictates your choices. Growth is the only direction forward, no matter how unfamiliar it feels. Growth asks you to let go of predictability and step into challenges that stretch your mind and your spirit. It asks you to embrace discomfort as a sign that you are breaking through old limits. It asks you to trust the process even when you cannot see progress with your eyes. And slowly, the things that once frightened you become the things that strengthen you. Every challenge begins to look less like a threat and more like a doorway. Choosing growth also means accepting that some people and some situations may not follow you into your next chapter. The path might require sacrifices, shifts, and difficult decisions that your past self would have avoided. But you walk anyway, because your future self is calling you forward. You walk because the life you want cannot be built on the foundation of the life you're leaving behind. You walk because growth honors who you are and who you are meant to be. In these moments of choosing growth over comfort, you discover that fear does not disappear, but your determination becomes stronger. You learn that you can be afraid and still move, uncertain and still trust, tired and still rise. And with every step, the world inside you changes, your beliefs, your boundaries, your resilience, your confidence. Growth becomes less of a destination and more of a way of living. And one day you look back and realize that the discomfort that once felt impossible to face became the doorway to a life you never knew you had the strength to build. You realize that choosing growth was not just a decision, it was an awakening. And as you stand taller, breathe deeper, and dream bigger, you understand that your courage to leave comfort behind became the reason you finally began to live. Break the limits you built yourself. There comes a point when you realize that the biggest walls holding you back are not built by the world, but by your own fears. These walls rise quietly over the years, every doubt, every insecurity, every moment you convinced yourself that you were not enough. They stand tall, not because they are strong, but because you believed they were real. And the day you decide to level up is the day you begin questioning whether these walls were ever meant to stand. That single question becomes the crack that lets the light in. Breaking your limits begins with recognizing that they are self-made, shaped by old voices, old wounds, and old versions of you. You start noticing how often you shrink to stay safe, how often you silence your dreams to stay accepted, how often you settle because you fear failing. But leveling up means refusing to be governed by fear any longer. It means challenging the beliefs that weakened you and choosing new beliefs that empower you. Every limit you question loses a piece of its power. There will be moments when the mind tries to convince you that you are not ready to break through yet. It will remind you of your failures, your flaws, your past mistakes, hoping you'll retreat back into the familiar. But even then, a wiser part of you whispers that growth begins where excuses end. You start realizing that your potential is far louder than your doubts and your possibilities far bigger than your fears. This inner awakening becomes the beginning of transformation. Breaking your limits requires patience with yourself because unlearning takes time. You peel away layers of fear that were never yours to carry. You challenge patterns that kept you small. You let go of stories that were written by pain instead of purpose. And as you shed these layers, you feel lighter, more aware, more capable. Your past no longer defines your future. Your decisions do. When you decide to break through, life responds. Opportunities appear where you once saw obstacles. Confidence rises where you once felt hesitation. Your world expands in ways you never imagined. Not because the world changed, but because you changed the way you saw yourself. You begin to see possibilities that were always there, but hidden behind the limits you carried. The world opens as you open. As you rise above your self-made limits, people may not always understand your journey. They may question your choices or doubt your growth, but you stay committed because this breakthrough is for you, not for their validation. You keep climbing, even when the climb feels heavy, because every step forward is a step toward freedom, and freedom is worth every ounce of effort. And eventually you stand in a place where the walls that once seemed impossible to break now lie behind you, shattered and powerless. You see clearly that the only thing that ever limited you was the belief that you couldn't rise. Now, with new strength, new clarity, and a new identity, you realize that the moment you broke your limits, you didn't just change your life, you reclaimed it. Discipline is stronger than motivation. There comes a time when you realize that motivation alone cannot carry you to the life you want. Motivation is beautiful, but temporary. It rises when things feel inspiring and disappears when life becomes heavy. Discipline, however, is steady. It stays with you when your emotions fluctuate, when your energy drops, when your heart feels overwhelmed. It is the quiet force that keeps you moving even when nothing around you feels easy. And this force becomes the foundation of your growth. Discipline is born the moment you decide that your goals matter more than your excuses. It is choosing to show up regardless of how you feel, not because the journey is easy, but because the destination is worth it. You begin to understand that discipline is not meant to punish you. It is meant to empower you. It creates structure, momentum, and consistency in a world where everything else feels unpredictable. It becomes the anchor you hold on to when motivation dissolves. There will be days when everything inside you wants to take the easy path, when resistance whispers that you deserve a break from trying. But discipline gently pulls you back to your truth, reminding you of the life you are working to build. It tells you that progress is not made in grand moments, but in the small, ordinary choices you make every day. And slowly, these choices reshape your identity and strengthen your character. Discipline teaches you to honor your commitments, especially the commitments you make to yourself. It teaches you that success is not a result of talent alone, but a result of dedication, consistency, and resilience. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because discipline shows you that the perfect moment is the moment you choose to begin. You stop chasing motivation because discipline helps you generate your own momentum. As discipline grows within you, you start feeling a shift. Your goals no longer feel distant, your dreams no longer feel impossible, and your efforts no longer feel wasted. You begin to trust yourself more because you see your own consistency shaping your life. You start realizing that discipline doesn't restrict your freedom, it creates it. It gives you control over your choices, your habits, and your future. People may not notice the small acts of discipline you practice every day, but the results will speak loudly. They will see your confidence rising, your energy strengthening, your mindset transforming. What once felt difficult now feels natural because discipline has become part of who you are. And this identity shift becomes one of the greatest gifts you give yourself. In time, you look back and see that discipline, not motivation, was the force that carried you through your hardest days. It was the reason you kept moving when everything felt overwhelming. It was the invisible strength that helped you build a life aligned with your purpose. And you realized that discipline didn't just help you level up, it helped you become the version of yourself you always hoped you could be. Let go of what holds you back. There comes a moment when you begin to feel the heaviness of the things you've carried for far too long. Old memories, past hurts, broken expectations, and people who drained your spirit without ever giving anything back. These weights become so familiar that you forget they are slowing you down. But somewhere deep inside, you know you cannot rise while holding on to what keeps you grounded in fear. Letting go becomes a necessity, not a choice. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from the emotional chains that keep you tied to pain. It means recognizing that some people and some chapters were only meant to be lessons, not lifelong attachments. You learn that not everything you lose is a loss. Sometimes it is the beginning of your liberation. You start creating space in your heart for new experiences, new energies, and new possibilities. There will be moments when letting go feels like tearing a part of your own soul, because some attachments were built with love, even if they ended with hurt. But you breathe through it, understanding that healing often feels like breaking before it feels like rebuilding. You allow yourself to feel the grief, the confusion, the emptiness, and then slowly the peace that follows. This peace whispers that you made the right choice. Letting go requires immense courage, the courage to walk away from what no longer serves your growth. It asks you to trust that the future holds more for you than the past ever did. It teaches you that your worth is not tied to relationships that drained you, nor to memories that wounded you. You begin to recognize that releasing the old is an act of self-love, not abandonment. As you let go, you feel lighter. Your mind becomes clearer, your heart becomes softer, and your spirit becomes stronger. The burdens that once consumed your energy start fading, making room for joy to return. You realize that holding on to what hurts you doesn't protect you, it prevents you from becoming who you were meant to be. And this realization becomes your turning point. People may question your choices. They may say you've changed or become distant, but they do not understand the battles you fought quietly or the strength it took to finally choose yourself. You walk forward not because you're heartless, but because you're healing, not because you're indifferent, but because you're evolving. Letting go is never about giving up. It is about growing up. Eventually, you discover that letting go was the greatest gift you ever gave yourself. It opened doors you didn't know were closed, created opportunities you didn't know existed, and returned pieces of yourself you didn't know you lost. And in that moment, you understand that rising higher was never impossible. You just needed to free your wings from the weight you were never meant to carry. Believe you deserve a higher version of yourself. There comes a moment when you finally realize that the life you settle for reflects the beliefs you hold about yourself. If you believe you deserve little, you will accept little. If you believe you are unworthy, confidence will always feel distant. But the moment you begin believing that you deserve a higher, stronger, more radiant version of yourself, everything begins to shift. Your energy changes, your choices change, your dreams expand. Believing you deserve better is not arrogance, it is awareness. It is the understanding that you are allowed to grow, allowed to want more, allowed to evolve beyond your struggles. You begin to see your worth not through the eyes of others, but through the depth of your own spirit. And this shift becomes the foundation of your transformation. Your belief becomes the seed that grows into your new reality. There will be moments when doubt tries to pull you backwards, reminding you of past failures or the times you felt invisible. But believing in your higher self means trusting that your past was a chapter, not your entire story. It means understanding that mistakes don't erase your worth. They reveal your strength. Every tear, every setback, every disappointment becomes a reminder that you are still standing, and that alone is proof of your power. Belief requires nurturing. You feed it with positive action, with self-respect, with boundaries that protect your peace. You stop accepting behavior that disrespects you, stop settling for opportunities that limit you, stop apologizing for wanting a better future. You begin to treat yourself the way you wish the world would treat you, with gentleness, with honor, with dignity. And slowly, the world mirrors this back to you. As you strengthen your belief, you begin to notice how your environment shifts. Old patterns no longer satisfy you, old habits no longer comfort you, and old versions of yourself no longer feel like home. You start taking steps that align with your dreams, not your fears. You speak with more confidence, walk with more certainty, and think with more clarity. You become someone who leads your life instead of reacting to it. There will be people who feel uncomfortable with your growth because they were only familiar with the smaller version of you. But this time, you no longer shrink to make others comfortable. You rise because your spirit demands elevation. You rise because the life ahead of you is too meaningful to be lived half-heartedly. You rise because you finally believe that you deserve to rise. And one day, you meet the higher version of yourself, the version who walks with purpose, speaks with confidence, loves with depth, and stands with dignity. And you realize that this version was always inside you, waiting for you to believe enough to bring it to life. That belief didn't just level you up, it transformed your entire destiny. In the end, when you look back and realize that every struggle, every heartbreak, every silent battle was shaping you into someone stronger than you ever imagined, you begin to see that leveling up was never just about success. It was about reclaiming parts of yourself you thought were lost. It was about discovering the courage hiding beneath your fears, the strength buried under your doubts, and the fire glowing quietly in your soul. And as you rise, you understand that every uncomfortable step you took was actually leading you closer to the life your spirit always knew you deserved. A life where you walk with purpose, speak with clarity, and breathe with freedom. And then comes the moment when you finally meet the version of yourself you always dreamed of becoming, the version who stands tall, not because life was gentle, but because you refused to break. You realize that leveling up is not a destination, but a transformation, an awakening, a declaration that you are done playing small. You feel a powerful truth echo through your heart. You were never meant to live a life of limitations. You were meant to rise beyond them. And as you step into your next chapter with confidence in your eyes and fire in your spirit, you understand that the world has not seen your best yet, because your best is the version you are becoming now.